Please subscribe to the Lala School channel so you don't miss any exciting videos. Your support means a lot to us and helps us continue bringing you the best football content. On the day Klopp left Liverpool, the whole city fell silent, its streets unusually quiet, filled with a mix of pride for what had been achieved and regret for what was ending. The departure of Jurgen Klopp, a manager who had become a symbol of hope and unity for Liverpool, left a profound impact on everyone connected to the club. Fans look back on 9 glorious years, recalling unforgettable victories, emotional moments, and the strong sense of togetherness that Klopp inspired among supporters. As they reflect on these memories, many begin to worry about the days ahead, feeling uncertain about the future without the manager who led them through so many triumphs. An era has ended, and Arne Slot was chosen as the successor amid curious and somewhat skeptical glances from fans and observers alike, as people wonder how he will shape the team and whether he can continue the legacy that Klopp leaves behind. Klopp stepped down from the throne while the team was at its peak. People fear that Liverpool might fall into the same situation as Man United did after Alex Ferguson. Arne Slot was brought in as a replacement, bringing a sense of freshness, but he is not a big name. In front of him lies a massive legacy. Every action, every decision is scrutinized. Fans don't need the new king to become a copy of Klopp. They only hope he can preserve the soul of Liverpool during this sensitive transition period. When Jurgen Klopp left Anfield, no one said he resigned. The whole city whispered to each other that an empire had closed. The era of burning passion had just ended. 9 years with Klopp were 9 years of rule by a king with a fiery soul. He didn't simply coach a football team, he ruled over a dynasty. A reign of comebacks that left the whole world gaping in awe, like the Barcelona match, of radiant smiles and fist pumps toward the Kop as a vow to live and die with the team. Klopp built Liverpool into a blazing red fortress amid the winds and rains of Merseyside, making all of Europe tremble whenever "You'll never walk alone" echoed through the night. Arne Slot was chosen to succeed him, stepping into the spotlight, not with the bearing of a seasoned warrior, but like a crown prince thrust onto the throne by fate, still far too early to be truly ready. Klopp flashed an enigmatic smile, the smile of a man who knows he has left his very soul at this sacred ground. Amid tens of thousands, he sang out loud, "Na na na Arne Slot," a tune half joking, half serious, like a farewell, yet also a ritual, passing on the sword of power. That sword is still hot, still carries the scent of smoke and fire from battles not yet cooled. And from that moment on, the name Arne Slot echoed as both a successor and a challenge resounding throughout Anfield. Liverpool fans look at him with eyes full of emotion, both hope and uncertainty, because they have witnessed how the Manchester United dynasty collapsed after Sir Alex Ferguson stepped down. A once mighty force that dominated England fell into years of chaos, where countless successors failed one after another. Leopold understands all too well the price of losing someone who can make an entire city believe in miracles. He believes that football is not just a game, but a matter of faith. And now Arne Slot stands in exactly that position, where every victory is scrutinized and every defeat is amplified into an echo of doubt. Sometimes in the stands, people still sing "Na Na Na Slot," a song that sounds like a sad refrain, both a blessing and a longing. In that sound, there is something unsettled, like an echo from the past that refuses to fade away. Arne Slot sits on the throne left behind by the old king, surrounded by walls still glowing with the red hues of memory. And amidst those songs, perhaps he himself is also hearing the question from the entire city. Does this successor have enough courage to turn the Klopp dynasty into the Slot era, or will he end up as just a keeper of the flame in the never-angry Merseyside reign? Arne Slot is not a face marked by legendary Dutch achievements. Impressive, yes, but not enough to make Europe doff its hat. Yet Klopp and the board chose him over many more prominent candidates. They saw in Slot a unique character, someone who knows how to listen and empathize, something rare in the harsh world of football. During his first transfer window, Slot only had a rather modest budget, but he was not fazed at all. With patience, he gradually laid the first bricks to prepare for a new era. When a great emperor like Klopp steps down from his throne, he surely understands that finding a crown prince capable of carrying the Liverpool dynasty is perhaps even harder than continuing to wield the sword himself, haunted by the collapse of neighbouring empire Manchester United. Klopp has witnessed firsthand how King Sir Alex, simply by choosing an unworthy crown prince, saw his once glorious legacy, built over years of conquest, gradually decline time and again. Among the princes available for selection, there was a time when Prince Ruben Amorim, reigning over Sporting Lisbon in the land of the undefeated, was considered the brightest candidate. He had the people's support, notable achievements, and had even conquered both of the powerful neighbouring empires, Manchester City and Arsenal. His reputation soared, his fighting spirit burned fiercely, turning the small kingdom of Sporting into a formidable obstacle for any dynasty daring to covet it. However, it was Prince Arne Slot who was chosen, a decision fraught with risk. His somewhat gentle and amiable appearance made people worry that he might struggle to gain the absolute support of renowned veterans like Salah, Dijk and Van Dijk. Klopp and the High Advisory Council had a different set of criteria. They did not just look at battlefield achievements, but also considered the heart and strategy of the successor. Slot had proven that he knew how to handle people and apply military tactics flexibly, even though his previous army still had many limitations in terms of strength. The High Council and Klopp saw through to the heart and strategy of the Dutch prince. They needed composure to unite the remaining veterans in continued service, and flexibility and adaptability in tactics, the kind of tactical mastery that devotees call controlled offensive strategy. Through his journey in the Netherlands, Prince Slot proved that he could accomplish great things with limited resources. And most importantly, Trang knows how to ignite the fighting spirit in his soldiers through persuasion rather than through fits of rage. The Liverpool dynasty needs a smoother transfer of power rather than a bloody revolution. Grandmaster David Ornstein, a renowned swordplay expert, once remarked, "Slough is not just the commander, Trang is the one who ensures the team's philosophy is upheld, but with a new tone, its inheritance, not mere imitation." As soon as he ascended the throne, King Slot immediately gained absolute trust. This was evident in the immediate appointment of strategist Richard Seal to oversee military operations. This is the most crucial piece that ended the era of frugal spending, something people used to call the tradition of the Red Brigade. King Slot did not hesitate to open the treasury wide, unleashing a monetary whirlwind across Europe, recruiting a wave of talented individuals, affirming that he had the courage to be different and to rebuild the dynasty according to his own vision. Slot enabled the veterans from the Klopp era to maintain their form. Salah had an extraordinary season. Van Dijk and Alisson remained the leaders. On the pitch, Liverpool were not as fiery as before, but they were more resilient and wiser. As Man City gradually grew weary, Arsenal still lacked the courage to break through. The Kop once again found the status of conquerors. Without needing to be overly flamboyant, Liverpool became a team that knew how to win with cold precision. Amidst the banner of the new King Slot, the biggest question still hangs like a dark cloud over the Liverpool empire. Will the loyal servants who, together with the great Emperor Klopp, built this mighty empire, still remain faithful? And more importantly, do they still have the strength to fight against the rising powers from all directions? Yet, as if by some magical miracle, the army left behind by the revered Klopp has not faltered. On the contrary, they are shining even more brilliantly under the reign of the new king, Arne Slot. Those whom people feared would lay down their swords and lose heart after the great emperor's departure are now proving their dedication and thirst for victory to be stronger than ever. No need to look far. Take the veteran Mohamed Salah, for example. Once likened to a general, there were times when he appeared agreeable but was not truly in accord with Klopp. Yet now he is putting on a dazzling display of skill and prowess. His breathtaking, wind-slicing attacks and his cold, decisive finishing moves not only tear apart the opponent's defensive lines, but also shatter all doubts and dissatisfaction that lingered after the argument outside the ring at the end of Klopp's era. It wasn't just Salah. Other key players like Van Dijk, though sometimes criticized for a decline in form, still displayed the composure and leadership of a true marshal at the heart of the Iron Defense. He was not only a solid defensive wall, but also the one who ignited the team's fighting spirit and served as a spiritual pillar for the entire squad. Looking at how the veteran warriors of the previous era still tirelessly wield their swords in battle and give their all, a renowned martial arts commentator couldn't help but exclaim, "The first rule of an invincible army is to have skilled warriors who are always ready to go to battle, dedicate themselves, and fight alongside each other, no matter who sits on the throne." What we see in the Liverpool Empire is a rare, seamless transfer of power. While the Liverpool Empire is consolidating its internal strength, neighboring powers are showing clear signs of decline. The once mighty dynasty of Manchester City, after many years of dominating the realm of Primal Lake, is now beginning to show cracks within its own ranks. Meanwhile, DGA Sinan, ruling in the north of London, though still powerful, lacks the composure and stability of a true conqueror, often stumbling at crucial moments. It was precisely thanks to the solid foundation laid by the previous dynasty and the decline of his rivals that the new King Slot not only ascended the throne with ease, but also gained extra time to build and test his new recruits. The former ministers did not lay down their swords, and the surrounding empires lacked the courage. This is the strongest affirmation that the position of the Liverpool Empire remained unshaken after the abdication of the great Emperor Jurgen Klopp. After a stable first season, Slot began to assert his own mark. He expanded the squad, bringing in a host of new faces. Signings like Wirtz and Ekitike are all young contracts full of energy. For many fans, this is a rare sight for Liverpool in previous transfer windows. For the first time in many years, they witnessed the club spending heavily to rejuvenate itself, but the joy also comes with some concerns. Will the new signings be able to integrate quickly, or will they disrupt the stability of the existing squad? Slot is betting on a long-term vision, believing that youth will be the foundation for the future, even though there are still many uncertainties at present. Where there is risk, there is reward. Where there is effort, there is achievement. That is a classic couplet in the history of Eastern politics. It means that when there are no more birds, the bough will be broken. When there are no more rabbits, the hunting dogs will be cooked. This is extremely true for many monarchs throughout history. Once they have achieved their goals and established their great undertakings, they often find ways to get rid of the loyal ministers who once assisted them. A prime example is the story from the era of the Chu-Han contention, when Liu Bang founded the Han dynasty, and in the end the great general Han Xin, because he was too talented, was accused by Liu Bang and met a tragic fate. Slot also achieved his goal, as this new monarch claimed the Premier League title in his very first year of rule. So, what about the high-ranking officials like Salah, Van Dijk and Alisson Becker? Did they also end up being cast aside? No, King Slot was not that ruthless. In his second year of rule, they all still remained in the familiar capital, holding their usual positions. Not ruthless, but Slot understood that a monarch needs to build his own circle of loyal supporters. No matter what, Salah, Van Dijk and Alisson all once served the old regime. Even if they never had any intention of rebelling, they still weren't people he had brought in himself. Therefore, this past summer, the reigning monarch Arne Slot decided to shake the entire continent of Europe. A lot of money was spent on recruiting new soldiers and strengthening the ranks. Even the warlord holding the northeastern region, Newcastle, as tough as they are, couldn't keep their top general Alexander Isak from being lured away to the passionate Anfield. Slot even extended his octopus-like reach all the way to Germany to bring in young talents like Wirtz and Ekitike. It's clear at a glance that this new entourage brought in by King Slot is meant to replace the aging group of ministers and nobles. Up front, the future attacking line already features Wirtz, Ekitike and Isak. In the back, Alisson now has Mamadashvili, who is much younger, and even Captain Van Dijk. If he weren't a fellow countryman of Slot, he might also be on the list, just waiting for his number to be called. So, what's the basis for this speculation? Didn't Slot just recently set his sights on Mark Gay from London, the Eagle of Crystal Palace? Now that he's reassured the old guard and finished recruiting new forces to strengthen his own faction, that task is also complete. But everything has two sides. The integration of these two groups is a problem that King Slot probably hasn't considered yet. The old guard Salah has been affected by age and can no longer strike fear into opponents. Meanwhile, the new recruits like Isak or Florian haven't performed well yet. The old bamboo gives way to the young shoots, but at Anfield the bamboo is already old and there are no new shoots growing. It's King Slot who suffers the most. Besides the issue of organizing his personnel, Slot is also losing the favor of the people. The people of Ekitike, who used to address him with the respectful term Your Majesty, are now starting to waver in their loyalty. First, Slot spent too much from the treasury this summer, while at Liverpool the tradition has always been to spend frugally and carefully. Second, despite spending a lot, the results have yet to show. It's only natural that the people's faith is shaken. You're still holding on, Slot, so make the most of it and help your team regain their form. Because if you wait too long, the longer the night, the more things can go wrong. Once things get out of control, it won't just be the people's faith that's shaken. Your own seat will be at risk too, Your Majesty. As the squad grew larger, conflicts began to arise. Slot kept shuffling between different formations to find the right formula. But he seemed to be gradually losing his way. The veterans still held significant influence, while the newcomers needed time to prove themselves. All of this made the atmosphere in the locker room increasingly stifling. Nevertheless, Slot remained calm. He understood that ruling over a once glorious dynasty was never easy. Balancing the past and the present is the greatest challenge for any successor. The foremost quality of a monarch is decisiveness, not to the point of cruelty nor weakness, but simply being resolute in one's choices. In the dynasty called Liverpool, it seems that King Arne Slot is still lacking in this regard, accepting to continue employing old ministers while also building up new factions of power will inevitably lead to conflicts of interest. What is this conflict? It is most clearly reflected in the structure of personnel within the court. For the first 5 slots, he was a wise ruler. The 4-3-3 formation was used throughout, with the backbone being the midfield trio of Szoboszlai, Mark Allister and Gravenberch. However, with the arrival of the new faction, the lineup had to change. At times, the 4-3-3 was switched to a 4-2-3-1 to accommodate the young Admiral Florian Wirtz. This means that the midfield trio, who had been the backbone during the past successful years, often could no longer play side by side. The most unfortunate was the central midfielder, Szoboszlai. Strong, impressive, and exceptionally talented at a young age. But many times, Szoboszlai was shifted to cover the right wing. Although it was not a reasonable move at all, Szoboszlai still fulfilled his duties. But that's not where he can make the most of his strengths. This is just the clearest example of the lack of rationality in the way players are being used under the current reign of King Arne Slot. Moreover, the internal affairs of Liverpool's court could also become chaotic if the king is not skillful. A high-ranking official like Salah has clearly declined, but Slot hasn't dared to sideline him from the game. Both Salah and Van Dijk are key figures, each holding a certain amount of power within the court. If they are not given important roles, there could very well be internal unrest. So what about giving new personnel like Isak or Frimpong a chance to prove themselves? That hasn't really gone anywhere either. This group, though they have little power and aren't a real concern, still hasn't delivered the expected results, especially considering the amount of money Slot had to spend to recruit them. The worst situation is on the left flank, where the new signing, Milos Gierkash, is currently stationed. He has been constantly criticized by the public for his defensive and offensive abilities, which fall far short of a former stalwart, Andrew Lopezon, who has now stepped back from the spotlight. In short, to maintain the success of the kingdom he is ruling, perhaps Slot needs to be a bit tougher. He has the power in his hands, so shouldn't he use it effectively? He is the king, and the players are his subjects. Would they dare to disobey his orders? That would be considered rebellion. And if that outcome were to happen, perhaps Slot would no longer deserve to sit on the throne. Arne Slot's Liverpool has yet to create magical nights like in Klopp's era, but fans shouldn't be too pessimistic just yet. The team is still in the process of rediscovering its identity. They may be less fiery, but the Anfield spirit still runs deep. The road ahead will certainly not be smooth, but be patient with Arne Slot. He may not yet be the one to write a new legend, but he is keeping Liverpool true to itself.